Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Luke Reacts. This week, it's Lebanon. Lebanon has been in the news for various reasons. There are things exploding in Lebanon. Some of them happen to be apartments, and some are beepers. But let's start with the houses. So there has been a series of really the change on the ground in southern Lebanon, northern Israel, is that Israelis have finally had enough of having their population removed from the border of uh, of Israel and northern Israel. There's a mandate that Israelis cannot stay within like 2.5 kilometers, or sorry, 5 kilometers or 2.5 miles from the border. And as a result, there's just, it's coming on a year and school has started. The holy days are coming. And there was just enough frustration said, like, it's time for this thing to either we have a war or we don't, either we get over it or we don't. So there was there's been some attacks, obviously, against a bunch of the soldiers, the commanders, the leaders of the terrorist organization known as Hezbollah. And they, in the process, I'll get to the beeper thing in a bit, but I wanted to show you a video of a house that was hit by an IDF rocket, and the subsequent explosions go on and on and on. Clearly, there is more in that house than just the kitchen table and a refrigerator and the mattresses. One of the things that has been expected, once a war would start, was there would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rockets potentially aimed at Israel, and they would all get launched. And there's been some sizable ones too. So, cruise missile size rockets that are very strategic and can hit very specific targets, etc. That kind of thing has, pretty well known all over the area. And people are using, and Hezbollah has rented basically people's apartments, like a room in your apartment, for Hezbollah to store their rockets. And here's a video of one of those rocket storage homes getting hit. Check this out. Sound you're hearing, that dun, 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 is other rockets going off. It ends up being so big that the house next door basically explodes as well. Um, and that's just a regular somebody's house. Now tell me that's not a like a weapons storage facility in just a regular town. And see, one of the things that you have to think about in southern Lebanon is that a lot of that area is peppered with both Druze and Christian towns. And one of the things that Hezbollah has done has been to bring the they kind of took over a bunch of these towns. And once again, they often use the homes and the sites and the locations of either Christian homes or Jewish homes. So when the retaliation from Israel comes, it actually hits the minority person's home, which just shows kind of the despicableness of Hezbollah once again. But here, this comes on the heel of this most amazing espionage thing ever perpetrated on a hostile enemy, a hostile organization. Now, there's a bunch of funny names that have come up on this. Cave Havoc has a series of them on I'll refer to her tweet. We have from Katie, Operation Grim Beeper, Operation Hot Pocket, Operation Below the Belt. All of those are funny. I think they're funny. But we're going to stick with the one on top, the Grim Beeper. So what happened? So a while back, Hezbollah was like, guys, our cell phones are getting tracked everywhere we go, and we're gonna lose out. So what we need to go old school. Let's go back to the 90s, the early 90s, maybe late 80s, and get ourselves some beepers, some pagers. When I was a kid, my dad had a construction company, still does, and he had pagers, all his guys, just in case they had to get a hold of them. You'd find a phone, you get a number, you call it up, and you get the instructions wherever they are. And that's the typical old school beeper. And I would feel so cool when I'd like go to the movies with my friends, and my dad would give me his beeper to use, just in case, kind of thing. So proud, right? But we're talking late 80s here. So that Hezbollah went back to the late 80s. They're like, we got to get back to the pager game. And so they found out who's in the pager game. Who's doing pagers these days? Well, little did they know, Israel knew they were on the pager hunt. And so they set up a fake company in which they basically made a deal with Hezbollah to supply them with beepers. And in the process, they put little tiny explosive devices in all of these pagers. And um, so they got these pagers got handed out to all the top officials of Hezbollah all over the country. And so everybody was sitting around with their pagers, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 all over the country, pagers started going off. People, there's some video of people, guy at a grocery store, has a pager in his like man purse. Some dude who's also at a grocery store, different grocery store, he's sitting at the end of the counter, like putting stuff in people's bags. He explodes. Some dude, on a moped, hit goes off on him, right? So not that many were killed, but a lot were hurt. And you can imagine a when the pager is placed around your midsection, that might cause some damage. Also, if people are holding them in their hand or looking down at them when they went off, that also happened. And so you have a lot of Hamas fighters and commanders, like leaders, who either like were blinded or their their fingers got blown off, or they might have lost something below that in their genitalia area. Okay. And so hence the Operation Hot Pocket. That kind of thing happened all over the place. And so that was the day one, let's say. Day two, their walkie-talkies start blowing up. So all over the country, walkie-talkies. So yeah, if it wasn't, so the cell phones are no good now, and you can't use the pagers, and you can't do walkie-talkies. There was this great video out there of a it was a parody, it was a skit some guys in Israel did of these guys pretending that they were they were Hamas guys or Hezbollah guys in southern Lebanon. They're like, let's make some coffee. And they are looking at the kettle, whether they want to turn it on or not, because they're afraid to turn on the kettle. Or, they weren't sure if they wanted to weigh themselves on the scale because they were afraid. I mean, you got to imagine if you thought you were safe when you got rid of your cell phone, and then your pager goes off and explodes in your face. And then, or, it wasn't you, it was somebody else next to you or near you or your friend or whatever, part of the cause. And then the next thing you know, the walkie-talkies are going off. It makes you wonder, like, is anything safe? Is anything at all? Yeah, no. It was such a great, very targeted. I mean, you couldn't get more targeted than that if you wanted to. So you had to, it was, again, showing that Israel is a very moral army. Why? Because they weren't targeting civilians. They were targeting Hezbollah fighters. And that's who got hurt. And it serves them right. That you're gonna force people to live away from their homes because the 8,500 rockets you're launching at Israel over the last year. Enough is enough. So here's another funny video I got to show you. This one is I think it's taken from the upcoming, or no, it must have already happened because we got the video for it. Here is the video of the coming procession of the Hezbollah fighters. Here we go. Watch this. It's funny. طمني عنك من شان الله من شان الله طمني عنك. Hello. For those who couldn't see it, that's starts off with some your typical military procession, except guys are in crutches, followed by people without their hands, followed by a bunch of dudes in wheelchairs. It's funny. It is. It really is. All right, so you have that one, and then you got to think if you are the in charge of communications now for Hezbollah, you're like, what are we going to have to do? How are we going to have to make this work? And so the word on the street is the new head, because the previous head might have lost his head. Is that they're going old school, right? So here's a picture, newly released just now, of the new head of communication from Hezbollah. There's a nice looking pigeons right there. Hope they get where they need to go with all the little notes on them. Yes, that's funny. Also, okay, so Hezbollah got really hurt this week, let's say. And it hasn't stopped. Israel keeps bombarding all of these places where there are known rockets. And these are big rockets that are, they're required to go on trucks. So they're required to go, there was one video that the IDF put out this week that shows, a house by itself. And like they basically, in a sense, the garage door can open, and the cruise missile will be launched from inside the house, right? Like that kind of thing. That kind of, and supposedly those are all over southern Lebanon, but they shouldn't be there, because see, Israel controlled southern Lebanon for many years, starting really in the, there was a time in which a bunch of PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization fighters, ended up in southern Lebanon. They were causing a ton of trouble. So Israel had enough, pushed them back, and took over the southern part of Lebanon. And then, all through the 80s and the 90s, Israel was in control of southern Lebanon, but it was like, some have called it, Israel's Vietnam. It was one of those things where Israel lost soldiers, maybe not every day, but every week. So it was roadside bomb or a sniper or something that would basically show and cause Israel to really lose its support. Someone said to me this last week that it's really hard to be a moral army for a long time, because it just kind of eventually it gets under your skin, and either you stay and become brutal, or you leave and just kind of figure out some other way. So in 2006, Israel withdrew from Lebanon. Shouldn't surprise you that it's a year after that Israel left the Gaza Strip as well. Okay, this idea that we can disengage from the region, it's optimistic about maybe we can figure out some way to keep the peace or keep Israel safe without having to control the whole thing. So that's the thing. And the deal was, it was a deal made between Lebanon and Israel and the United Nations. And I'm sure a bunch of other countries are involved. But really the plan was that the UN would come in and anything south of the Litani River, Hezbollah could not have any rockets or weapons. Now, as many of you know, I'm a huge fan of the United Nations. Huge. I mean, just like this week is the General Assembly in New York City, and I'm really excited that, the thugs of the world are showing up in town. There's a big spike in prostitution, drug use. The bar's empty of all of the liquor. That's the UN, and it's a mess, right? So the UN was supposed to come in and take over and keep Hezbollah out. Did they? I'll give you one guess. No, they did not. Right? Like the UN's great at watching the rules that they were supposed to hold on to be broken. They're just good at observing bad stuff happening. Um, and once again, they did that. And so here we are in this territory, south of the Litani River. Hezbollah is not supposed to be there, and yet they have rockets literally the size of most of your living room. Imagine having a 20-foot rocket in your living room. Be like, oh, weird. Wonder how that got there. You're not talking small stuff here. We're not talking like hiding your AK-47 under the bed. You're talking a 20-foot by, let's say, 2-foot round, 20 feet long, has wings, it's on a trailer, sitting in your living room. And that's, we're just all supposed to pretend that the UN had no idea. Weird. How did that possibly get there? Who knows? Come on. Right? Like, please, if you watch this show, make sure that every time you think of the UN, just your opinion of the game is lower and lower and lower and lower because they suck. Okay? All right. So that they have clearly not done their job. And so as a result, what is Israel doing? It's doing the work it should have done a long time ago, which is cleaning up the mess. And the goal is to get the people of Israel back in their homes. Lots of rockets have hit them. There's lots of damage, lots of parts of northern Israel, which was already kind of considered, on the fringes, on the edges, have been decimated, and it's really sad. And it's also really sad on the Lebanon side, because what a lot of people don't know is that Lebanon is divided into 3 distinctive groups. Okay, they're like, imagine, I'll keep it easy for you because there's some smaller groups within that, but just for the sake of simplicity, Lebanon is like a third Christian, a third Sunni Islam, and a third Shiite Islam. Okay. And they have like a power sharing deal in the government that it was the deal that helped end the civil war. But it's still nonetheless, it's pretty evenly divided by those three kind of powers, those religions. And so what happens is, right now, is that it seems that Hezbollah, it wants to ruin the whole country, which is no surprise because, once again, that's what they are deciding to do. And so you have that happening, and the Christians are caught up in it, whether they like it or not. they're there. Now, the Christians have never. It's one of the places in the Middle East where the Muslims really never conquered. Right? It's really actually, so it's really hard to conquer a mountain people. The people on the plains and the coast are a little easy to beat, but the people on the mountains are hard. And so basically, the Muslims never could fully conquer Lebanon from the Christians, and they did got a good job of holding them back. But Lebanon's also all over the Bible. One of the I could start in the New Testament, or I could start in the Old. So let me enjoy myself. Let me start in the New Testament. Okay, so in the New Testament, the person, none other than the big man himself, Jesus Christ, he goes to the area of Tyre and Sidon. Okay, Tyre and Sidon are on the southern part of the coast of Lebanon. Tyre was originally an island that was, it was off the coast far enough to where it was hard to beat, but close enough to where you could easily get to the it's called the mainland. And when the Romans conquered Tyre, they did so by basically filling in the water, creating a land bridge, if you will, between the mainland and the island, and therefore that's how they defeated Tyre. But Tyre was a very wealthy city. It was originally Tyre and Sidon were both were Phoenician. Phoenicians were sea peoples. They like in the same sea people family as the Philistines and the Cartesians, the Carthaginians, one of those two. The people of Carthage, right? All right. Those were all sea peoples. Potentially the Hittites also. Anyways, so they were very wealthy, but here you have Jesus going to Tyre and Sidon, and it says here in the book of Mark, chapter 7, and from there he arose and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and he entered the house and did not want anyone to know, yet he could not be hidden. Right, so he's trying to take a nice little vacation, head up to spend some time up in Tyre and Sidon, and he's found out. But immediately, a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. Okay, so you have Jesus engaging with a Gentile woman. The Syrophoenician, meaning is basically just the Phoenicians of that part of the country, basically that part of the empire. That was what they were called. All right. So her daughter had demons. Picking up in verse 27, and he said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it's not right to take children's bread and throw it to the dogs." But she answered, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And he said to her, "For this statement you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter." And she went home and found the child lying in the bed and the demon gone. All right. So the focus on that passage is often on the fact that Jesus basically says uh, you got to feed the children first before the dogs, right? And she says, well, the crumbs falling off the table, the dogs eat them, and in a sense she's asking for a crumbs, the crumbs of the Lord. But what do we know about that though? What we know is that Jesus was going first to the Jews. That's who he was talking to. And he just happened to this woman had heard he was a great healer, a person who delivered out or demons and out of people. And so she came to him, right? But he was going to see and clearly minister to he expected and was talking with the Jews of the region. Why? Because it's noticed that she was a Gentile, and the exchange was that over the Jews and the Gentiles being, the Jews were the priority of Jesus's message, and that's clear. That's clear from this. But it also shows that Jesus was going to the area of Tyre and Sidon to hang out with Jews. Okay. Now, how could that be? How could that be? Well, maybe because that border was not such a, it's not like it is now. Now the border between Lebanon and Israel is, there's this dirt track, and then there's a fence, and then there's an electric fence, and then there's more dirt, and then there's another fence. It's like 40 feet worth of, fencing and technology that creates a proper border between the two countries. Back in the day, it wasn't so. It's kind of one area. Even actually, even on the Ottoman Empire, there was not a fixed border. There was actually a train that went from. You could get a train from Jaffa, which is near Tel Aviv, and take the train to Beirut. And Beirut was one of the gems of the Near East, and no doubt that train would stop at Tyre inside. Okay, so no doubt there would have been Jews living there, both at the time of Jesus and up until the establishment of the state of Israel. And Lebanon, and there were a lot of Christians. When it looked like there was going to, the UN was seeking counsel from various regional leaders on Lebanon. The patriarch of the Maronite Church, and the Maronite Church is the largest, call it like denomination in Lebanon, actually said, we're with the Jews. We're a minority surrounded by Muslims, and we know what it's like. And so actually supported the Maronite Christian patriarch supported the establishment of the state of Israel. And that's well documented, right? Because they saw it was together. Right. So I do want to read another passage, because the other thing, one of the things that Lebanon is most known for, particularly biblically, and perhaps even because it's literally on their flag, is the Cedars of Lebanon. And so, once again, Tyre's in the Bible. And here is 1 Kings chapter 5. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent his servant to Solomon, where he heard that they had anointed him king in place of his father. For Hiram always loved David. And Solomon sent word to Hiram, "You know that my father, David my father, could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God because of warfare in which his enemies surrounded him, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side. There is neither adversary nor adversity nor misfortune. And so I intend to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord said to David, my father, your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, shall build a house for my name. Now therefore command the cedars of Lebanon be cut for me, and my servants will join your servants, and I will pay you for your servants such wages as you set. For you know that there is no one among us who knows how to cut the timbers like the Sidonians." So Hiram heard the words of Solomon. He rejoiced greatly and said, "Blessed be the Lord this day, who has given to David a wise son to be over this great people." And Hiram sent Solomon, saying, "I have heard the message you have sent to me. I am ready to do all that you desire in the matter of cedars and cypress timber. My servants will bring it down to the sea from Lebanon. We'll make it into rafts and go by the sea to the place you direct, and you'll have them broken up there, and you shall receive it." And that goes on to how much they shared and split with each other, right? But you have the king of Tyre, Hiram, who is talking to Solomon about the use of cedar for building the first temple. And it happened. They put them on rafts, rowed them down the coast, and then brought them up to Jerusalem and built the temple. Now, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Lebanon, and I met a lot of great people when I was there, and I would love to share about those great people, but unfortunately, because of the current climate, it's probably not wise for me to name any of them. So I will instead share with you this one of my favorite videos of all time at the Philos Project. I'm the illustrious, perhaps one day award-winning videographer, and I film the none other than the great Robert Nicholson as he is standing in front of a cedar of Lebanon. Now, I have to let you know, in the background, you will hear a little squeak, the squeak, squeak, squeak. It's like the squeak of a squirrel squeak, or chipmunk or whatever. And just so you know that as I was recording this, I was trying to walk backwards. It's a very steep slope, and I was having to try and also get up an embankment. And all the while, there was people that were walking around, and one of them was a little toddler, 3 years old, running around sometimes with little squeaky shoes. And so in the background, as you're hearing this great description of the Cedars, Lebanon, know that there's a 3-year-old toddler wearing squeaky shoes going around behind me. So here it is.
Hey everyone, this is Robert again. If you think of the word Lebanon as a Christian living in America or somewhere else in the world, probably the first thing you think of is the word cedars, the cedars of Lebanon. We read about them in the Song of Solomon. We know about King David asking King Hiram of Tyre for lumber to build the temple, the first temple. And I'm standing right now in a cedar of Lebanon, possibly the oldest, or certainly one of the oldest cedars that exists in this country. This could have existed very likely during the time of David and Solomon. We're talking about 3,000 years ago, and maybe even before that. You can see it's absolutely huge. And really, we talk a lot about living in the West, reconnecting with our roots, our origins here in the Middle East. This is an actual living connection. This thing was alive, certainly when Jesus walked through Tyre and Sidon, and possibly when David was building his temple there on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Amazing, impressive. You go even further back, you think about the myth of Gilgamesh coming from Mesopotamia to the mountain of Lebanon to find wood in these forests that were guarded by the gods. Truly one of the most sort of mystical places in the Middle East, both before our faith and continuing on through. This is just a few short miles from the town of Bishara in Wadi Kadisha, and you saw the video before. Truly a center of historic Christian life in this country. And to me, when I see this tree is a reminder, a living reminder of everything that we have in terms of our cultural heritage going all the way back to this place in the Middle East.
Wow. One of the great videos of the Philos Project that for a long time had the most views of anything we ever put out was the Cedars of Lebanon video. I know people that go and watch it annually as a reminder of for humor, and also the Cedars of Lebanon. They were giant, literally like so big. We're like, think of the redwoods of California when you're thinking about the Cedars of Lebanon, just ginormous trees. And you go up into the mountains, and that's what you see in Lebanon. And like Robert said, some of those date back to 3,000 years. Is really quite incredible, quite an incredible place. And so it really kind of honestly, it makes me a little bit sad that all this is happening in Lebanon. Lebanon is one of those countries where, when I was a kid before the the Civil War, um, back Beirut, which is this great city, was known as the Paris of the East. Um, Great food, great life, a vibrant community, and a lot of it has been really damaged by the ongoing wars, damaged by Hezbollah's control. A couple years ago there was a big, they called it the Beirut blast, because it was like almost like an atomic bomb going off in Beirut, but it wasn't. It was a fertilizer storage that ignited and exploded, and it caused a bunch of people died in the process. It severely damaged a bunch of homes in Beirut, and a lot of people never recovered. We tried to do what we could for humanitarian aid and that kind of thing, but it was significant. And once again, Hezbollah is causing trouble in Lebanon as well. Now, a couple other things about Lebanon. One is one of the things that happened in the partition between the post-Ottoman Empire, world, was that the Protestant churches got together and they divided up the, let's call it the lands of the Middle East for their, missionary purposes. And the Protestants divided so you had the Anglicans, the Lutherans, the Baptists, and the Presbyterians. Now, the Anglicans, the Lutherans, and the Baptists all actually ended up working in what was before 1948, what was Palestine, or called Palestine. And it was actually Lebanon. Lebanon was largely Presbyterian. And there's some really interesting kind of data points along the way on the impact of the Presbyterian orientation, theological orientation, and its potential influence over American foreign policy. Because one of the things that happened was it was the Presbyterians that were very involved in, if you were a missionary in the Middle East, often, if you were going out into the small villages, your kids were in boarding schools in the main city, or the main city. Like a lot of the mission work was done either in schools or hospitals, that kind of thing. And the American University of Beirut was one of the epicenters, actually, of the Presbyterian work in the region. And when the State Department was being formed, one of the early employers of former missionaries and former missionary children was the State Department. And so a lot of the State Department was initially filled with Presbyterian Arabist children. And so it's no surprise then that, that got baked into the foundation, that later on you ended up with a State Department that is largely anti-Zionist, because the theology of Presbyterian theology isn't necessarily anti-Zionist, but it often helps. Okay. It is within the Reformed tradition that you find the strongest adherence, maybe, to supersessionism or replacement theology, which basically says that the church replaces Israel as God's instrument transformation on the world. Now, that's different, I think, than other denominational tracts, but it does mean that. So, I mean, basically, everywhere in the Book of Psalm or Proverbs or in the prophets that has a blessing for Israel, You just got to cross that off and put it in the church. That's the way that theology kind of operates. Now, I would say that theology is incorrect, because I don't think that the church replaces. I think that the church gets to be grafted into the story. But there's a difference between being replacing and being grafted in. And we are, according to, I think, Romans, we are the grafted in ones. And so, needless to say, theology matters. Theology matters today because it actually shapes things that come later. And who knew back in the 40s and late 40s and 50s, when the State Department was being formed, and these young kids of missionaries were getting hired, that it would have such a lasting influence on American foreign policy. But it is, and it does. So it's quite sad what's happening in Lebanon. It's a beautiful place, beautiful country, beautiful people. I look forward to the day when Hezbollah is a shameful name on the a scar, if you will, on Lebanon's history, in the way that Nazism is a scar on the history of Germany. It's something that Germany resists, is the rise of Nazism and that kind of thing, because it's such a embarrassment to them. So may Hezbollah become an embarrassment to Lebanon, and that's also my hope and prayer for the Palestinians, that Hamas would one day be a shame upon the memory of the Palestinian people, because both of these terrorist organizations need to be destroyed completely, and for the world to be a better place, it should happen sooner rather than later. So the conflict in southern Lebanon and northern Israel will likely continue for several more weeks, but it's hard to replace leadership, and that's it takes a while. It takes a while to rebuild, but and Hezbollah is going to have to, or disappear. Hopefully, on the disappear side. So, yeah, let's pray for Lebanon. Pray for the peace of Lebanon. Pray that one day Lebanon and Israel will be able to have a peace treaty in the way that Israel and Jordan and Israel and Egypt have peace treaties. That should be our wish and our hope. And the Christians and the Druze and the people of southern Lebanon can come freely and visit their family and loved ones that they can only email and WhatsApp and that kind of thing. So that's a hope. That's our hope over here at the Philos Project. Thank you all very much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube show. And our YouTube is very important because it helps us get more, do more. That's a good thing. Also, we are listener supported, so please consider making a donation to the Philos Project. This is our 10th year that we're heading into. We'd love to make this 10th year our best year yet, and be able to do a lot more stuff. So please consider making a donation, and the way that you can do that will be in the description below. So until next time, thank you all very much for watching. Have a good one.